Hello kiddies, your Uncle Spurt here and welcome to another testicle-throbbingly enticing episode of TechSpurt Weekly. And this week your Uncle Spurt has buggered off to India for the first time in 2 decades. Last time I was here I had hair, I had a proper job, and I actually had friends who weren't crusty sock puppets. Mediatek has very kindly hosted a whole bunch of us tech twats out here just to show us how they're absolutely dominating Indian tech. In terms of being inside of stuff, they're basically the Boris Johnson of the tech world. And it's a proper nice hotel as well, and I really appreciate how they've put these little signs in the corridors so I know which way to crawl after too many whiskies. We have also had a chance to check out some of the local sites, including good old Humayun's tomb, which is basically a giant real-life Serious Sam level, except that instead of gunning down alien bomb dudes, you're dodging postcard sellers. This Humayun fellow's clearly absolutely loaded, because even though he's dead, he's still residing in a gaff the size of Milton Keynes. Not bad for a corpse. I've also fully immersed myself in Indian culture by, for instance, having curry for breakfast every day, which I personally consider a significant life upgrade. And seriously, Shredded Week can go f*** itself. And as part of our Mediatek week, we've also had the chance to check out some tech that isn't freely available back in Blighty, including a bit of local phone action, this here Lava Agni 3. Now Lava is an Indian manufacturer who's been around for about 15 years, and its fresh new Agni 3 smartphone has a big ol' 66 watt fast charge battery, a whopping great 1.5K screen, bit of Mediatek Dimensity 7300X swagger, and a dinky second screen around back, just like Xiaomi's Mi 11 Ultra. And yet the Agni 3 costs just 24,000 rupees here in India, which is roughly 220 pund. My arse. So let's check out the Lava Agni 3 after a swift bit of jingle action.
TechSpurt Weekly.
Should actually probably jump on the whole ASMR unboxing bandwagon. Here you go, wrap your lugs around this.
Oh, excuse me.
Even at this price, you get a banging bit of condom case action. Big old beefy adapter. And a USB cable. Nice. Now first off, got some pretty premium vibes on the go here for a blower that's just over 200 quid. Almost feels like flagship quality. This right here is the pristine white model, but you can grab it in a darker shade if you want. It's got a lovely matte finish to it so it doesn't get all smudgy. Very handy after a good bit of button on action. And it's IP64, so we can get a wee bit moist. You do have an action key slapped here just above the power key, which can be a wee bit confusing. But you can use it to quickly and easily load up the camera app, toggle on the silent mode, all that kind of shenanigans. As for what this thing's running, well, it's a bit of Android 14 and a surprisingly stock sort of vibe as well. The crapware on here, pretty much non-existent, which is rather refreshing. And hey, you're guaranteed 3 OS updates and you got 4 years of security updates on this bad boy as well, which really ain't too shabby at all. Now the Lava Agni 3 boasts a 6.78 inch 1.5K AMOLED display, plus a bit of stereo speaker action with full Dolby Atmos support. So absolutely cracking setup for your anime type shenanigans. But the proper chin stroker here, the feature that really sets the Lava Agni 3 apart, is that secondary screen slapped around the arse end, just nestled nicely in that camera bump there. As you can see there, it's a 1.74 inch AMOLED display, so it's bigger than the Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultras. And if the phone's lying face down like so, it does actually support a bit of always on display action, which the Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra didn't, which was always a bit f***ing weird. You can run absolutely bugger all apps on this thing. Sadly, the functionality is rather limited, but you can check your notifications, and you've got a load of widgets that you can slap on here as well. So for instance, you've got basic media controls, do a bit of track skipping in Spotify or whatever. Got the old activity rings, as you can see, absolutely smashing it on the exercise front as always. Bit of recorder action for when you get those spontaneous creative brainwaves. Fantastic idea for your next chapter of your werewolf romance novel, and you got your stopwatch alarm timer type shenanigans. And of course, you can use it as a camera viewfinder for your selfie type situations if you want to use that rear cam, but more on that in a bit. And Lava has also chucked on a nauseatingly cute cartoon dog thing called Fiery. Does all the typical canine shenanigans. He begs, he plays with his frisbee, and he spends about 20 minutes thoroughly cleaning his bollocks as soon as your mother-in-law comes round. But fair play, it would actually be pretty useful if you want your kids to stop fannying around and actually stare at the camera for a pic. And the performance, again, at this sort of price point is pretty stellar. You've got Mediatek's Dimensity 7300X stuffed in here, backed by 8 gigs of RAM. And that's the same chipset that powered Motorola's standard RAZR 50. And this can handle some pretty intensive gaming fare, including a good bit of Wuthering Waves action. Obviously, you can't scale the graphics up to those more insane detail levels, but you've got a big old vapor chamber stuffed in here as well, so at least the lava doesn't live up to its name and singe your pinkies. And the Lava Agni 3 boasts a 5000 mAh capacity battery as well, not too shoddy, and you got 66 watt wired fast charging as well, which is better than a lot of bloody flagships. No wireless charging support, but then, you know, what do you want, the moon on a stick? You just want the moon on a stick, don't you? As for the camera tech, well, you've got a 50 meg Sony quad base sensor for the primary shooter. Let's have this lovely and highly lifelike bit of plant action for our subject. And this camera app absolutely packed to the tits with bonus modes. Loads of stuff to piddle about with. And on the regular auto modes, the Lava Agni 3 will absolutely do a job for your poncy tourist shots or whatever else you want to do, as long as you're not shooting in particularly low light and things start to get a bit grainy. And you've also got yourself the obligatory 8 megapixel ultra wide angle shooter, but then also an 8 megapixel telephoto lens with 3 times optical zoom, which is a pretty rare find among more affordable phones, and it certainly, again, does a job. And then, yeah, you can use that minuscule rear screen in order to shoot selfies with the main camera setup using your shortcut button to snap away. Otherwise, the Lava Agni also offers up a 16 megapixel selfie shooter in that front screen, which, if like myself, you're a craggy-faced lush with the dead-eyed smile of a serial killer, you might find it preferable to the rear cam. Not quite as much uncompromising detail in those pics with this one. You don't have to face up to the harsh realities of life. And that right there, my lovelies, in a tasty wee nutshell, is the Lava Agni 3. A pretty banging bit of tech, lots of great features chucked in there for not much cash. Sadly, it is India only for now, which, yeah, is a real shame, because if something like this came out in Blighty, it could be a serious rival to those Pocos and Motos and some more affordable mid-rangers. Although, of course, unfortunately, it wouldn't end up being quite as affordable in Blighty, thanks to taxes, glorious taxes. What do you reckon of the Lava Agni 3? It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. And now it's time for the part of the show that's about as entertaining as watching a dog cleanse its own happy sack for the best part of half an hour. It's viewer comments.
Viewer comments.
Alright, let's smash through these pretty quick, because your Uncle Spurt's got a free bar that he's missing out on. Frankly, the thought of booze going on drunk just breaks me out in a cold sweat. So let's kick off this week with Sarab for Tiroi. Probably completely mauled the pronunciation of that, apologies. He recommends Old Monk Rum while I'm here in India. And cheers for the recommendation, dude. I do like a bit of spiced rum, but sadly haven't touched any of the stuff since I've been here. I've just been smashing an awful lot of Kingfisher Ultras. I'll tell you what, that is a beer that certainly earned that Ultra title. It is a step up from the stuff that we knocked back in the old curry houses back home.
Update. I found it! I found it!
Erong9378 says, I watch all your videos, whether or not I'm interested in the product. We must support tech reviewers who regularly use bollocks in their reviews. And I appreciate that support, my friend. You know, with your Uncle Spurt, maximum bollocks guaranteed. Horatio says, love how the cost of a pint of beer makes you want to either visit a country or not. I mean, it's absolutely not the only deciding factor, but it certainly helps to scratch a few off the list, that's for sure. It also helps if the weather is less shit than the UK, which, to be fair, is roughly 97% of the world. Bri77 says, reviewing phones after you're dead. Well, it could be worse. Robocop got murdered and they just revived him, rebuilt him, and sent him right back to work. I'm kind of hoping that after I snuff it, nobody goes to the expense and trouble of scraping my brains out of my twitching corpse and smashing them into a bloody cyborg so I can continue doing a piss-poor job of reviewing tech. And Drevo50 says, Hades is full of iPhones, you wouldn't like it much. Well, imagine having to use an iPhone for the rest of eternity. Personally, I think I'd rather be strung up by my bollocks and forced to watch James Corden comedy specials on repeat. Graham Mimikyu says, do you do streams or post your gameplay somewhere on YouTube? These days, sadly, I actually spend more time trying to tackle the most stubborn of my nasal hairs than I do playing games. And to be fair, I'm pretty sure if I did actually bother to stream my confused, awkward attempts at playing the likes of Black Ops, I just have absolutely infuriated viewers screaming at me in the comments that basically a fucking raccoon could play the game better if it literally just smashed its face repeatedly into the controller. And of course, last week's Hot Techspert Weekly chat was all about Samsung's upcoming Galaxy S25 blows, which should be launching around sort of January time. Most people seem to be pretty happy just to stick with their existing Galaxy flagships rather than upgrading to the S25s. So for instance, Ventum says, man, I'm going to stick to my S24 Ultra. I actually like my boxy design and I feel this is the peak of the brick era. I mean, I bloody well hope so, really, because yeah, if they get any brickier than the Galaxy S24 Ultra, then carrying them in your trouser pocket is going to become straight up indecent. YRJ97 says, I wish they added more to the design. Almost all Samsung phones look pretty similar these days. Sometimes it's hard to guess a phone from the back between the expensive and the mid-range models. And ditto, Eric Edwards says, Samsung could at least try to differentiate back cameras between the flagships and the A series. Maybe for the A series they could try to use the camera layout on the Note 9. That would be better. Yeah, absolutely, I can understand that. You spunk out the extra cash on an S series. You want people to know it's an S series, god damn it. And obviously the Galaxy S24 Ultra is a bit of a special case, being a massive rectangle and all. OE Homestead says, too bad they're filled with bloatware and settings. Oh man, the settings, there are millions of them everywhere. Yeah, so many settings. The fact that One UI is so dense and double stacks a load of features that, you know, you've already got in Android. We don't need extra Samsung versions of it. That is definitely my main bugbear as well. XXLVWXX says, the hate I got on Reddit when I said that the Exynos 2500 was happening and people need to accept it. Yeah, Reddit, not always the most accepting of others' views and opinions, that's for sure. I often think it's the online equivalent of a humiliating medieval torture. Like, if you're actually reckless enough to post a comment on there, you're basically the poor who's been stuck in the stocks. And you're just stuck there miserable while everyone jeers and points at you and throws bits of rotten cabbage. Michael Bay says, hi mate, I think I have a theory for why your Chromebook review isn't doing so well in the viewing figures. It's a nearly £700 Chromebook. Most people looking for a laptop at that price are not looking at Chromebooks, and most Chromebook shoppers are not looking to spend 700 quid on one. You know what, Michael? I think you might have smacked the proverbial nail right on its proverbial bastard head there. Lesson learned and all of that. Moto Matt says, I watched the Chromebook review. I've mostly forgotten it already, but it definitely got me a few minutes closer to death with minimal irritation, so that's something. And in the end, that's all that really any of us can possibly wish and hope for, just a smooth-ish ride to the grave. I really better hurry this up, otherwise they're going to be f***ing closed. Not Salmon says, Android or iPhone, Mr. Techspert? Get the feeling you probably haven't watched this channel too often. Mark Porter says, I'm too drunk to taste this chicken. We've all been there, buddy. Hopefully, me in a couple of hours. Adrian Woolley says, as the old saying goes, double diamond works wonders, but it tastes like watery shit. I'm assuming that isn't their official marketing slogan. And Fathead Dave says, hey uncle, you look similar to Embryo from Crash Bandicoot. I'm assuming that's the bald evil twat with the twizzly mustache. I mean, yeah, but isn't he like bright yellow? I mean, I know I don't have the most healthy of complexions, but I don't have fucking jaundice either. But I have been compared to a lot worse, so yeah, I'll take it. Yes, massive thank you, as always, to everyone who commented last week. Please do slap your comments down below, and we'll try and merrily stroll away through as many of those as possible next week. And speaking of next week,
Next week, what the f is next week?
And next week, of course, as long as my flights aren't completely rogered, I will be back in good old Blighty. And oh my sweet giddy tits, do I have some stiffy-inducing content for you wonderful buggers. On Tuesday, it's the big ROG Phone 9 series gaming smartphone launch, so if you enjoyed watching me fumble my way through a bit of Wuthering Waves in this video, pretending to know what the f I'm actually doing, well, there'll be a whole heap of that possibly coming your way on Tuesday, wink wink. And then on Thursday, the reviews embargo for the Oppo Find X8 and the Find X8 Pro finally lifts as well, so possibly again a few videos coming your way. And then naturally on Friday, please, I'm serious, please do come back and join your Uncle Spurt for another seat moistening episode of Techspurt Weekly. Yet more of this kind of stuff, which apparently you watched right to the bitter end, unless you just skipped to this bit, of course. And if you haven't done already, please do subscribe, ding that notifications bell, and have yourselves a absolutely friggin' fantastic weekend. Cheers everybody, love you!